The NFL season is not official here on Last Second Sports until we have a Behind Enemy Lines episode. This is the first of the season. 49ers, Steelers should be a throwback, great game. I've got my Steelers content creators here with me. We're going to talk all about the game. Plus, what does the season hold for both teams next? All right. Welcome back to Last Second Sports, where we are giving you our take down to the last second. And as I said, it is Behind Enemy Lines, week 1, Steelers 49ers. And I've got my guys from the Steel Twins YouTube channel. I've got my guy Rob, and I've got my guy Dan. Rob and Dan, what's up, fellas? Thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Hey, thanks for having us on, man. It's a pleasure to be on. We appreciate you reaching out months in advance to schedule us. I'm glad we can finally make it happen. And hey, it's football time, man. It's week 1. This is when things get serious. So I think we're all excited about it. Hear, hear.
Yeah, absolutely. This is going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to this. And this is the first time, I did this all last year. I was telling you backstage, I did this all last year. It became a huge hit. This is the first time we've been able to link channels. So we're able to do this together, where we have Steelers fans watching on your channel. We have the 49er fans watching on our channel. But more importantly, we get to bring in the comments together so that everybody can see. And it's the first time that I've had 2 content creators from one team on. So I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a fun time. It's going to be a fun little discussion. We're talking 2 teams that it's a highly anticipated matchup. Many people around the world are going to be seeing this live. It's going to be broadcasted throughout the entire United States. So, this is definitely a must-see matchup.
Before we get into the full game, do you live in Pittsburgh?
Unfortunately not. We live a couple hours away from Pittsburgh, but thankfully we've been there about a handful of times. So it's always a fun experience. Potentially down the road, we'd love to actually get out there, get a little more closer out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, I'm a 49er content creator. I live all the way in Tampa. So I grew up on the West Coast. I grew up in Oregon. I'm a 49er fan. I went out to training camp. I'll be there week 1 for the Steelers 49ers game, but I get it. It's not everybody can live by their team, but that doesn't mean that you're not a fan and you don't love your team. So I respect it. I love that you are repping the terrible towel and the Steelers right now. Let's get into it, man. That's what I'm looking forward to this Sunday. I cannot wait for it, man. I cannot wait for it. All right, let's get into it. What are the season expectations for the Steelers? I know here, 49er fans, it's Super Bowl or bust. There is no in between. They've got to win a Super Bowl. A lot of people are willing to put Shanahan on the hot seat if they don't, which is crazy, but that's kind of where we're at. The expectations are running very, very high. I don't believe that's the expectations that we're getting out of Pittsburgh this year, but it is a Tomlin coach team. Steelers are always fighting for position. I expect them to be competitive all season long, but Rob or Dan, I'll let you guys decide who goes first. What are the expectations for the Steelers this season?
Well, I would imagine it's very similar to the Niners, although compared to the Niners, I feel like Niners are a little bit more on a time warning, if you know what I mean, on trying to reach the Super Bowl. With now that you guys extended Bosa earlier today, you guys have invested a lot into what you guys have. And of course, you're going with Mr. Irrelevant last year, Purdy. So it feels like you guys are more so on the rush to get one. While I feel like our Steelers, there's not an immediate rush yet. Some may argue, some may disagree. That's fine. Depending on what side of Pittsburgh you're talking to, people may want a Super Bowl this year. People may think or expect a Super Bowl this year. And typically, the standard is the Super Bowl. Pittsburgh breeds championships. They are a championship city. They are just a winning culture. And I hate to lessen that standard this year, but I feel like in Kenny's rookie contract, there's not an immediate rush. Preferably, I just want to see a significant jump, not only from the players, not from the depth, not from the young guys, but especially the coaching staff. Because the coaching staff has definitely let us down in the past couple years when it comes to big games, especially in the playoffs, especially towards the late of the season. So if we can see a significant jump in that, as well as seeing some substantial growth from the team and a lot of the guys in rookie contracts, very similar like the Jags last year, that would be a dub for me this year. Plus, additionally, I may be spoiled in saying this, I want a playoff win. It's been a minute since we won a playoff game.
Yeah.
And I feel like with this team compared to last year, you would agree with me. I mean, it's we have to win at least one playoff game this year.
Yeah, normally, like Dan said here, the expectation is Super Bowl. It should always be Super Bowl or bust when it comes to this team. I mean, we have not had a losing season since, I want to say, since 2003. We're always going to be in that type of category of when it comes to playoff time and Super Bowl time. The Steelers are always going to be a name in that category. But it's been since 2016 since the Steelers have actually won a playoff game. They've been to the playoffs after that a handful of times, but they haven't won one yet. And I feel like it would kind of be too much of a jump to say, yeah, it's time to go to it's got to be Super Bowl this year. You know what I mean? We would like to have our expectations a little bit less, although it's hard to really do that because it should always be Super Bowl for any NFL team, really, especially the Steelers. But, at least showcase and prove that, hey, you guys are taking the next step, that these are the players to definitely go with for the future, that Tomlin is starting to groom his own team and have his own quarterback, since it's no longer Big Ben now at time. It's going to be Kenny Pickett, at least for the near future. Definitely prove yourself, get to the playoffs as they usually are always in playoff contention, and at least win a playoff game and show significant proof for maybe next year. Then we can start talking about Super Bowl odds for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I feel like with Tomlin, I don't want to jump ahead here, but with Tomlin and everything that has been deferred about him the past couple of years, especially since he had been for so long, it's time for him to say, this is my team now. This is my own squad. There's no one from the past now. So let's make a jump this year.
I like it. The AFC North is tough. I have a second channel. It's an all NFL channel. This is where my bread is buttered, but I do like to talk NFL as a whole. And I mean, I could see a scenario where the Browns even make the playoffs. They've got a hell of a team. And if Deshaun Watson can get back to what he was, they're not going to be easy to beat. You've already got the Bengals, which are right there every year with Burrow. The Ravens, when Lamar's healthy, is good. They've got a new offensive coordinator. And then the Steelers are always coached well, and the talent is rising there. I'll be curious to see how Pickett plays, but man, that division is not easy. It's interesting because the 49ers coming out of the NFC West for years, that was the toughest division. It's taken a major backstep starting last year, going into this year. The North might be the best division right now in football. You guys are in for a gauntlet, I feel like. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong at all. This division is absolutely tough. I mean, there are other divisions out there that would be in battling for hardest division or best division of football. But yeah, you're looking at the AFC North teams. You're thinking all of them could potentially make the playoffs. I mean, it's that tough. And AFC North football is no joke. So
no, it's not.
We're looking forward to the matchups for sure.
All right, let's get to some of these super chats real quick, and then we'll get on to the next topic. Moises says, how are the Steelers fans to visiting fans? Are they like the Eagles? You tell me, what's it like?
No, we are not like Eagles fans, man. Not at all. In fact, the Steelers on the road has been known as they're always taking over. Steelers Nation is everywhere. Especially like when it comes to West games, like it's typically Pittsburgh West is what we like to call it.
Yeah.
But obviously for this game, it's in the home opener in Heinz Field, which I'm not sure if you knew this. This is our first home opener since 2014. It's been a minute since Steelers have opened week 1 in Heinz Field. And yes, I still call it Heinz Field. So the energy is going to be hot, but I would not definitely put us in the same category as Eagles fans. Definitely not.
Y'all usually start out hot though. Last year wasn't it the Bengals? Burrow 3 interceptions, looking awful. Wasn't that against y'all, or am I mistaken on that?
No, that was week 1. That was a tough battle. That was. Yeah. I still remember that game. That was wild. I went to overtime, and the kickers couldn't make a field goal to save their lives.
No, that game was really crazy. I'll even go a year further than that when we faced the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo week 1 in 2021.
Yep.
That game was chaotic, and that game was down to the wire and a banger matchup, and somehow the Steelers still pulled off the upset and won the game. So now we got the 49ers for week 1, but this time around it's actually in our own territory. So it's going to be real interesting with that one.
And how do you feel about the Niners every year to start off? Because there's always been 50-50 reports on they start slow and start a little rough. So are you concerned about that?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm concerned from a, will they make the playoff standpoint. I think barring a ton of injuries, they're going to be a playoff team. I'm very confident in that. But I think for the 49ers to win the Super Bowl this year, they're going to have to be the number 1 seed. And starting out slow the way they have the last couple of years, starting out 3-5 and then 2-4, those things cannot happen this year. They cannot, the way that they have the last couple of years. They have to start out hot. It starts in Pittsburgh week 1. And I'm trying to explain, or have been throughout my shows this week, that I don't know if there's a team that is more prepared week 1 than the Steelers traditionally. There's something interesting that Pittsburgh does that I notice, where you play a lot of starters in all 3 preseason games, even if it's for a drive. And for one reason or another, everybody has their strategy in the preseason. That gets the Steelers ready, and it gets them in a position where they're very competitive week 1, especially at home. So week 1 is always a crapshoot, especially on the road against the Steelers. I think this game is interesting because of that. But the 49ers have to start out hot if they want to get the number 1 seed and eventually, in my opinion, win a Super Bowl, which is the expectation. So they cannot start out slow if that is going to be the case this year, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I understand why you feel that way, especially with the NFC. I feel like the NFC is a little more wide open than the AFC is.
I
So
agree.
to start off hot would definitely be advised for you 49ers. But as you guys know, the Steelers aren't just going to, let the Niners come in and, steamroll them or slot them. This is going to be a competitive battle. Although I will say some of my concern is when it comes to big matchups, when it comes to high caliber teams, elites, I would say, and the Niners are up there with the elites and just the NFL in general. That can be a concern when it comes to how we game plan or our coaching staff, but things could change this time around.
Yeah, absolutely. And I turned off the camera for a second to switch hats for this comment alone. Vincent says, Jess, score some more background swag. These guys are making us look bad. Grab a Niner hat ASAP, please. Now. Laugh out loud. So I did it for you, Vincent. That's why the camera got turned off. If anybody noticed the hat switch, I did it for you specifically. Thank you, Vincent. I appreciate it. You guys are definitely swagged out. I made a comment before we went live. I was like, you guys that's an awesome setup. I love what you guys have going on there. Cryptic comes in and says, Bosa signed. Watt is healthy. Best edge rushers, wreaking havoc. Going to see what the O-lines are all about. Yeah, we're going to find that out very, very early on. Pissed Off Brother Bob says, originally from Ohio, so F Pittsburgh, go Niners. All right, fair enough. Flav, actually, this was one of the questions that I had, so I'm going to hold off on this one, but you are ahead of the game. And then last one here, Matthew Sanders says, let's talk the important thing, my fantasy team. I drafted Deontay, sight unseen, never watched him. What should I look for in this obvious 34-33 Niners win? What do you think about Deontay?
Deontay, well, he's coming off a very disappointing year where he had 0 touchdowns after a contract extension. So he's obviously a tremendous route runner. He's one of the best in the league at that. He is our number 1. Whether that will remain the case with Pickens just being George Pickens, that's to be determined. I have my own visions of Pickens taking that spot, but that's not a slouch on Johnson. He is a very trustworthy receiver. He's getting better year after year. He still has his reoccurring mistakes like drops, and he'll catch the ball and go back 10 yards or have the first down and go away from the first down mark. It's so frustrating every Sunday.
Yeah.
But Deontay Johnson is always trustworthy, is what I'll say. And I don't know who you guys are going to have against him. Would it be Ward? Would it be one of your other outside guys? Because that could be a mismatch.
Yeah, the 49ers don't really travel. Their corners aren't going to travel. They're going to stay the way that they are. So right side of your offense, I don't know what the receivers do for Pittsburgh. You're going to see Ward Left side, you're probably going to see Lenore, and it'll say that way. So,
Okay.
Yep. All right, let's get into this next one here. We've got 3 questions, and we can do it kind of rapid fire. We don't have to go crazy on them, but one of them, and actually, shout out to Flav. I'll work backwards. He asked TJ Watt or Nick Bosa. Who are you picking?
All right, I'm gonna be biased as hell right here. I'm gonna go TJ. I feel like he is the best pass rusher in the NFL, and I think last year when he was out for half the year, proved that because our defense took a massive drop, especially since we had no depth, which that's changed now. But Watt's healthy, Watt's ready to go, and I feel like after what happened last year, he's just ready to just bounce back stronger than ever. And I know Bosa is phenomenal. And I know if Bosa was out similar, you guys would struggle the same. So that they are both truthfully impactful to their own respective teams and legitimately the best top 2 edge rushers in the NFL.
Arguably, yeah. Now, there's no hate on Nick Bosa, no harping on Nick Bosa. Nick Bosa is definitely one of the best, arguably top 3 in the NFL. The guy is a beast. When he is out, the impact in the pass rush. Now, I know you guys' front 7 is pretty stacked, but I mean, Nick Bosa is going to be Nick Bosa at the end of the day. And when he's not on the field, you guys will feel the impact just like we felt that impact when Watt was out for I think it was actually 7 games. And
felt longer, but yeah.
And if I remember, I think we only won 1 game out of those. So
Yeah.
it was a real struggle for our defense, but I'm gonna have to agree with my brother here. We just think that TJ Watt is just the overall better player, impactful player, arguably athlete. Honestly, just what he can do on that football field is just ridiculous, but in a good way.
And is that a little biased? Yes, I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, listen, I'm gonna go bias as well. Like let's keep it a buck for a second. Here's the way that I see it. If we're going brothers, Bosa's versus Watts, I would take the Watts because I think the Watt brothers as a tandem are phenomenal. And the one thing about TJ and his brother, athletic wise, I don't think Bosa is the athlete that Watt is, but Bosa is still a hell of an athlete in his own regard, and he is a technician. That is the biggest thing with Bosa. There is not a move that he hasn't mastered. He can string moves together. He sets up moves. The guy is phenomenal. I mean, just watch him play. And if you just zoom in on him, the way that he puts the offensive lineman in a conundrum, play in and play out, it's unlike anybody else. I don't know if anybody's the technician that Bosa is. Then you add in that he's also a very good athlete in his own right. I have to go Bosa here, but Watt is a hell of a player. And I would say this as well. Bosa is usually up against left tackles and Watt is usually up against right tackles. I would say that left tackles are a little bit tougher. So those numbers that Bosa is getting are coming against left tackles to where Watt is coming against right. And so that's why I would lean Bosa. But I don't think you can go wrong either way. Both come from a great lineage. Both are very, very good players. And I think it's going to be fun to watch them both this coming weekend for sure.
Absolutely, and they're both very deserving of their respective contracts. And although I am glad to see Bosa play because I want no excuses from the Steelers team, no matter what happens. Part of me is a little upset that they did come to an agreement because I was really hoping he'd continue to hold out.
I'm sure you were. I'm sure you were. that when that came across the ticker today, you're like, damn it. And I got to be honest, I was thinking, all right, how am I going to talk my way through this show and confidently with Steelers fans in the chat pick the 49ers to win? That's going to be tough to do. Feel a lot better now than I did a couple hours ago before that happened. So, all right, let's get into the next one. Shanahan or Tomlin? Who are you picking here?
Oh, wow. Well, obviously Shanahan's the offensive-minded guy. He's probably one of the best in the NFL in that regard, probably the best, let's be honest. I mean, you saw what he did with Matt Ryan and the Falcons in that MVP year, and even when he was with the Browns and the Commanders, Washington, long before, right? I mean, he's really built his way up and deservedly as a head coach. And Tomlin did the same, and he's been our head coach for it's going on 20 years now. Although I will say they both have their criticisms deservedly, and they sometimes don't step up in games they should be. or they should step up. I think that's a fair argument on both guys. Shanahan has that choking type of reputation, I suppose, with the Falcons and what he did with the Niners recently. And Tomlin, he just doesn't step up in big games against top competition when it's necessary. So they both definitely have the errors, and no coach is perfect. No, not even Bill Belichick. Let's be honest. But truthfully, and granted, I don't know another head coach. I have never been through another head coach. And that's just the weird life as a Steelers fan. Like for a while, we went how long with Ben as our only quarterback, and we're young, so we only knew Ben as our quarterback, and we've only known Tomlin as our head coach. But a part of me just feels like I wouldn't have no one else but Tomlin. And I've been up and down with him the last couple of years, but I've always stuck by him since day one. So I'll probably have to stick with Tomlin, but Shanahan, I love his offensive geniusness. Yeah. I think that's the path the NFL is going. You see some of the best teams in the NFL have offensive-minded coaches and how strong their offenses are. And I think that's the path we ought to go. Tomlin's not that offensive-minded at all. He used to be a defensive coordinator, but I'm still going to go with Tomlin at the end of the day.
Yeah, but, there's no hate or no harp on Kyle Shanahan, one of the best in the NFL. When you think of today's offenses in the NFL for this era, you look back at where he came from. In a way, he kind of jump-started exactly how everything has transitioned to an NFL offense, and you literally put anybody in that man's system, and the guy's going to thrive. I mean, like, the guy is just a very open-minded offensive type of person.
Yeah,
I mean,
I see the formations and the plays he just throws out, and I'm like, how does this guy come up with this? Like, he's just that creative.
Back with the
Falcons, he's a hell of a play designer, man.
Hell of a play designer with the Falcons, now the Niners. What he's doing with Brock Purdy right now could really help him. Now, nothing against Brock Purdy, or not taking anything away from Brock Purdy. The guy's a pretty athletic quarterback and everything, but coaching does play a part in a young man's development, especially with him being Mr. Irrelevant last year. Him and Kyle Shanahan's offensive system, I think that's the perfect match for Brock Purdy and what he's able to really do, and whatever he can continue to grow and expand his play with his head coach's offensive game plan. I mean, you guys could really be looking at finally a long-term quarterback for that situation. But, when it comes to Mike Tomlin, I mean, his resume speaks for himself, especially with his non-losing seasons. It seems to be a thing that just, even when he's supposed to have a losing season. Now, there was two different times the Steelers were realistically supposed to have losing seasons. It was the year Ben went out with a season-ending elbow injury, and last year when we were 2-6 at the bye week.
Yeah,
they managed to happen to get non-losing seasons. I don't know how Tomlin does it. I mean, I'll give him huge credit about that.
I feel like that's a little oversaid and sometimes overhyped because, he's had no non-losing seasons, but he also hasn't had much success after the fact. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
but at the same time, he just seems to be the type of guy that almost any kind of NFL player wants to come and play for, and when you want to play for a guy like that, you will do anything in your power to make sure that you help this man get a victory, get a win. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. I got to be 100% honest on this one, and I would take Tomlin. I would.
Wow.
I think Shanahan, I think when I went through the coaching ranks, I had him 7th, I believe, and I had Tomlin around 5th. So it's close. They're both very good. If Shanahan gets a Super Bowl, I'm probably switching that because his Super Bowl would be more recent. But Tomlin does have the ring, and he has the longevity. And throughout that longevity, his teams managed to play, I think, in a lot of scenarios above what they should. And the fact that, whether you want to say it's a feather in his cap or not to not have a losing season, I remember a couple of those rosters that he brought to either 500 records or a winning season. They should not have been there at all. And a lot of people said, well, he hasn't had a losing season, but he's had a 500 season. Now that we're going to 17 games, you're going to see the losing season. And it almost happened last year. You're right. But Pickett came in. They turned it around. They were able to reel off some wins. And once again, didn't have a losing season. His teams play above expectations when they're not supposed to be good. Maybe in some of the big games, there might be some more to be desired there as well. I'm not saying he is perfect, but with the ring, with the longevity, right now in this moment, I would take Tomlin. I personally also prefer CEOs as head coaches versus play callers. I like it when my head coach doesn't necessarily call plays. The Harbaugh style, Tomlin, that type of makeup. So for me, that's the way that I would prefer it to be ran. So right now, slightly, I would lean Tomlin as well.
Yeah, it's very respectful. And we have a comment in our chat from True for All says, never a losing season is crazy good. It's actually a crazy stat when you truly think about it.
Yeah.
I mean, it is mind-boggling to see how far he's been at, or how long he's been a head coach, and how far he's come. So
yeah, absolutely. All right, last one: Pickett or Purdy?
yeah, this was one I was looking forward to because truthfully, I mean, I don't want to say this game's going to make or break the discussion, because after seeing what Purdy did with you guys last year, going 5-0, didn't lose a game until the playoffs, and seeing what Pickett was doing, and everyone's like, well, Pickett was only first-round quarterback last year, and then the last pick is looking like the better quarterback, the better option. And I don't think it's early enough to make judgment on who's the better quarterback. Truthfully, they're both very good. Granted, I know Purdy has the best surround system for any rookie quarterback, a 7th rounder, the last pick of the draft for that matter. But that's also that's what everyone says about him. That's honestly his reputation at this point. But there's nothing to harper on about Purdy. You can't discredit him. Coming in as the last pick and doing what he's been doing, and how the Niners have so much confidence in him, says a lot. So it's not just, he has McCaffrey and Debo and Ayuk and Kittle and the line and the great defense and the head coach, right? It's not that he just has that. He's actually a very good quarterback, and he's growing in himself, and he's doing what's necessary to be a starter in the league. For someone that was the last pick, that says a lot. So it's not just he has the surround system, and the 49ers are banking on that. It's the Niners are confident in this guy, and they're seeing his substantial growth game by game, now going into year 2.
Mm-hmm.
With Pickett, granted, I've looked at Pickett more than I've looked at Purdy. The guy is just constantly on the field, and he's constantly watching the film. The guy is just mentally into it. He is just always about bettering himself. And seeing the immediate changes he did in the preseason, and every drive he led the Steelers to a touchdown, which says a lot. And seeing his growth and seeing him stay on the field and working with the offensive weapons, the new ones they brought in, and his leadership he's showing in year 2 it says a lot on him as well. And he also has a good surround system. He has a great run game. They definitely boosted the line. Thank God. He has good receivers. He has a great defense to lean upon. He has a head coach that anyone would want to play for. So both these quarterbacks have tremendous teams to pretty much grow with. And you're talking 2 of the best franchises in NFL history, for that matter. So I mean, they both are going to grow nicely. I'm going to go Pickett only because I think he has a bit more pedigree. I think he has more of that edge to him. He has more of that risk-taking ability, that more of a gunner mindset. Like, I'm not saying Purdy isn't this, but Kenny's more of the guy where he's just always trying to win. He's always trying to better himself. And granted, we haven't seen much of Purdy. He only played a limited amount of games. So we'll see what he's truly made of against one of the best defenses in the league. And same thing could be said for Pickett. I mean, the 49ers defense, you can attest to this, is definitely one of the best in the league. It's definitely threatening, and they've only added. I mean, you guys added one of our favorites, the guy we miss dearly on our defensive line, Javon Hargrave.
Yeah.
That is just
you guys know all about Javon Hargrave, no doubt about that.
And he's only gotten better since leaving Pittsburgh, since playing with Philly, and now that he's going to be in the middle of that front 7, along with Bosa and Armstead and Warner and Greenlaw. It's filthy.
Yeah.
And although we have improved our offensive line, and I'm glad for that, and it's shown in preseason, that's going to be a true test. And in some ways, I don't truly know if we can actually get a ground game going against those guys. And in that case, it's going to lean a lot on Pickett. And same thing could be said for Purdy in that same factor. So, but if I'm going to pick a quarterback, I'm going to go Pickett.
Yeah, I mean,
All right.
with what Purdy did last year, being Mr. Irrelevant and all, it's something that I don't think in history.
It's a story.
It's a story, and it's something I don't think in history has ever happened, especially for a quarterback, a guy that was not even supposed to come in with Trey Lance in there, and then Jimmy Garoppolo came in, and then he had to come in, and he did what he did, which was spectacular and promising, and it goes to showcase, what Kyle Shanahan and company really see in Brock Purdy. They're going with a right hand, and rightfully so. You kind of have to at this point, especially with his potential, and he's really showcased a lot in just the 5 games and the playoff games so far, with what he did in playoffs was really, really promising. It really makes you think, what he could have done against the Eagles had he not gotten injured, not to bring that game back up.
Yeah,
but
right. Or if he,
dude, just drive the stake into our hearts. What are we doing over here? He was going so well, guys, until that point. No, I'm just kidding.
Hey, listen, at least you guys got more of a recent playoff win. I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean, we're dying for one over here.
Fair enough.
But Purdy, he's definitely got a lot of expectations being Mr. Irrelevant and being the guy right now since you guys got rid of Trey Lance to Dallas now. But, I think especially with Shanahan's system, like I mentioned, I think he does take that next step. But at the same time, he's still got to prove himself, prove that, hey, they made the right choice.
Yeah.
And so does Kenny Pickett at the same time, being a first rounder, the only first round quarterback last year and having to come in after Mitch Trubisky pretty much crapped the bed. And after the bye, we can just see the improvement from Kenny Pickett game by game and what he did in the offseason, just being a football junkie and getting his targets together and what the Steelers added for him. They traded for Allen Robinson as that veteran, reliable receiver, that third wide receiver for them with George Pickens and Deontay Johnson right alongside.
Yep.
Pickett and the improved offensive line. Pickett and his surround system has drastically improved. He's improved. You just see it. It's night and day from his first preseason games as a rookie to what he did this past preseason. It's just phenomenal, and it really makes us Steelers fans very excited to see what Kenny Pickett could really do for the Steelers and see if he is the true heir to Big Ben Roethlisberger. But I think I have to agree with Dan. Biased, of course.
We're going Homer. We're going
Homer. But I mean, Kenny Pickett's our quarterback at the end of the day.
He absolutely is my quarterback. But I will say, I just feel like these two quarterbacks are about to just hit their strides and be like, hey, I have arrived. So that's the sense I get with both these guys.
I mean, we're talking about the only first round quarterback last year to the last quarterback selected. I mean, that's quite a matchup right
first
there.
to last. If you ain't first, you're last, right?
This one to me is actually a really good conversation because I think a lot of people listen, everybody has their team and they watch their team. They know everything about their team. But when you look across the landscape of the NFL, I think people watch some games, but when it comes to picking whether a player's good or not, a lot of people will look at box scores and they'll look at season statistics and they'll make a proclamation based off of what those statistics and box scores are telling you. And that's fair. You can't watch everything. Pickett is actually pretty damn good. And a lot of people will look at his stats from last year and be like, how can you even say that? If you watch him actually play, and the reason that I went back and watched Pickett and was actually watching all 22 on Pickett this summer is because of another content creator and friend of mine, Vish, pointed out that there's a lot of similarities between Pickett and Purdy. And so I started to watch Pickett. I'm like, damn, these guys are very similar. Pickett's a little bit bigger in stature. I would say he's got a little bit more long speed, but Brock Purdy's quicker. They both you talked about the mental side of things. I mean, that's where Purdy's strongest is the mental side. I think they're both very smart players as well. Pickett has the famous play in college where he acted like he was going to slide and then picked up more yards. So you're talking about two guys who are quick decision makers and good decision makers and are now, to your point, starting to hit their stride. Pickett's got a lot more talent around him. I expect him to play, if we're just looking at stats, is going to play a lot better this year. But right now, to me, and this doesn't mean that, hey, this player is going to be better for their careers. Really, I like to see quarterbacks for 3 years before I make a full judgment on them.
Mhm.
But right now, I would have to lean Purdy. And the reason for that is because we have seen it in the playoffs. Pickett, not his fault, was not on as good of a team. They were
That's
digging
true.
themselves out of a hole. I'm not saying he would play bad in those scenarios. I just don't know. The answer for Purdy is he played well in the playoffs. It's an unknown for Pickett. So right now, I'm leaning Purdy based off of solely that, knowing he can get it done in the playoffs.
Yeah, that's a great point. Playoff experience plays a huge part in a young quarterback's development, and both these guys have just are just sped up to the NFL speed. Like it's looking easy for them.
Mhm.
Mhm.
My concern, because I'm reading your super chat here, how concerned is
Yeah.
Pittsburgh about Purdy? My concern is the Steelers are going to underestimate Purdy, being how the Niners may have eased him in, or he has all these targets, or there may not be enough film on him, so we don't know entirely what to expect. So my fear is that the Steelers, from a coaching and a player aspect, might underestimate him, and that might bite us a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I think the same can be said about Pickett. I really can.
Yeah.
Piss off, brother Bob says Niners 37, Pittsburgh 17. Book it. I don't know what those emojis are. They're really small on the screen, but Bosa over Watt. Love it, brother Bob. Thank you. Official B&A Music says Watt turned Superman into a content creator. Shaking my head. I
Oh
love
my
it.
God.
Hey, take that as a compliment. Official B&A Music says Mason Rudolph or Duck Hodges. It's been bad, right? Like a couple of those guys. I know Mason Rudolph was like supposed to be the heir apparent, and it just never worked out. Thank goodness that Pickett is showing that he probably is going to be pretty decent, and you don't have to even figure that out.
No,
No,
I mean,
not anymore. But that was a wild time, though.
That
When
was
Ben went down. Yeah,
I'm not gonna lie.
that year.
That was a fun year. But to answer your question, I'm going Mason.
Mason all day.
I feel like Duck is overhyped by Steeler Nation, but I'm going Mason.
He really is like a character of what a good quarterback should be. Pissed off brother Bob says Warner and Greenlaw will feast on Sunday. Pickett in a coffin. All right, we'll see.
Mm.
And then he says, "Stop being so nice. We're stomping these fools." I don't see it that way. I'm always going to be honest in my assessment. I'll give you my score prediction at the end. Again, Pittsburgh to me at home, Tomlin coached. I know that they are going to be in the game. I'm not saying they're going to win it, but I would be shocked if the 49ers go in there and steamroll the Steelers. That would shock me probably more than the Niners losing. That's just being real.
Yeah.
Cornelio 49er says, how can we say Bosa is the best in the NFL if he can't even help his own teammates? In what way? I guess I'm a little confused by that comment. I don't know how he's not helping his teammates, but are you saying he took too much money? I mean, you got to get paid. When it's time to get paid, you got to get paid.
He deserves every penny.
Yeah, he does. Frank Tom Ocean says, thanks for coming on the show, gentlemen. Two of my best friends are Steelers fans. Who's the greatest Steeler of all time? I'm looking forward to Sunday. That's a great question.
Oh, it's obvious. Joe Green.
Me and Joe Green, no question. I mean, he was the start of a change, man. Back in '69.
Yeah.
Start of a change.
I love it. All right. This is one of my favorite questions every week because I just talked about it, how most fans really are 100% in on their team. They catch other games throughout the league, but they don't know a team really well. And that's what the content creators are here to do. That's why I love having guys like you on. And thank you again for joining me. This has been fantastic so far. But there's always a player on a team that a fan base just absolutely loves. And if they get in a group setting where they're talking about their team with other fans, it's a player that other fans may go, who? Can't be that good. I've never heard of him.
Mm.
But it's a player that you know is good or is ascending and you have a lot of belief in. Who is a player for y'all? And it may be somebody different that maybe a lot of fans around the league wouldn't know about, but you think can be a difference maker either this season or even in week one.
Yeah. And I'd love for not only your chat, but our chat to get involved in this question because it's a great discussion.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought this up. This is one I've been thinking about all week. And there's a couple. I'm not going to stick with just one, although I might at the end of the day. But I just want to throw out a couple. Obviously, there's Calvin Austin III. He was a 4th-round receiver last year. He was on IR all his rookie year, and he brings such a different dynamic to our offense we haven't had in a long time. It's exciting. We haven't had track star speed. We haven't had that speedy receiver, that deep threat, that greased lightning, that track star ability on our offense, that weapon in a long time. And he showed that immediately in the preseason. I mean, his first couple games, his first carry, his first touch was a jet sweep, which if you see too many of those, you can blame Matt Canada for that. That's our offensive coordinator. We're not very fond of him, not yet.
No.
But no, he took a jet sweep up for like 20 yards for a first down, and then Mason Rudolph threw a 67, I believe, yard bomb down to him deep. And I don't know how often he's going to see reps with Pickens, Johnson, and Robinson. He's going to be the backup slot option. I'm sure they'll use him pretty decently in rotations.
I think it should be safe to mention as well as he will be the main punt returner at the same time.
Yeah.
And what he showed in preseason was actually pretty solid because our return specialist for the past couple of years has kind of been lackluster.
Yeah, I think that the speed is such a tool. It's such a weapon for NFL offenses. It just messes with the defense's mind and their game plan. Once you notice that speed still on the field, it just changes the entire ball game.
Yeah,
and that leads to potential mismatches. So I'd say Calvin Austin. I'm gonna go with another receiver, Connor Hayward. He's one of our backup tight ends / fullback. We've said it on our channel a couple times. He gives us a Kyle Juszczyk type vibe. Obviously, not as good as a blocker, not as built, not as physical, but as a utility weapon, as a joker piece, as a Swiss Army knife. The guy can do everything you ask him to do, and throwing to him is never a negative. And that's because he has Hayward blood in him. He is Cam Hayward's younger brother.
But, there you go.
Yeah, but he is such a weapon. I feel like he is our secret weapon throughout the entire season. So
our true Swiss Army knife on offense, really, not just Calvin Austin, but Connor Hayward at the same time, because he's listed as a hybrid fullback tight end type player. But he's that type of guy that you can literally put anywhere on offense as a H-back, as a slot receiver, tight end, fullback, wherever you need to put him on offense, the guy will make a play. And when you throw his direction, I mean, I haven't seen one drop from this kid.
No,
not one far.
Not one, man. His hands are incredibly reliable. But the one I will passionately go with, and I think this is going to be a game changer because the middle of our defensive line has killed us. It has hurt our run defense. The lack of linebacker physicality has absolutely not helped. We have changed that, thankfully. But I'm going to go with Keanu Benton, who is our 2nd-round pick number 49, I believe. He gives me Javon Hargrave vibes early on. I think he can be our new Javon Hargrave, where he's going to start off immediately as a 2-down guy on run plays, try to slow down McCaffrey and all them. Hopefully we can plug that hole. He showed that in the preseason. He had no problem showcasing that ability. Eventually, I think he can be a 3-down guy alongside Hayward.
Yeah.
But I think the addition of him and his immediate impact is going to play big roles and is going to pay dividends for us in this game. If what I'm thinking actually turns out, I think that's going to be huge because we haven't had not only the linebacker physicality, but that anchor, that plug, that gap filler in the middle for a long time. So now that we actually have that guy, I'm very confident in Keanu Benton to definitely have an immediate impact, especially in this one where it's going to be very necessary.
I love it. Those are some great names. Is there anybody else that you want to add?
As a matter of fact, I do. One is now he's probably more familiar nowadays, but I want to go with our running back number 2, Jaylen Warren. When it comes to the NFL nowadays, you don't really need a primary running back anymore. That's not really the go-to, hence Jonathan Taylor's situation going on in Indianapolis. But nowadays in the NFL, and it goes the same with Kyle Shanahan's offensive scheme, he always focuses on the 2-back set. Back when he was with Atlanta, he had Devontae Freeman and Tevin Cole. Now with San Francisco, he has a lot of rotations. He had back then he had Raheem Mostert. He had another running back, Jeff Wilson. Now he's got Christian McCaffrey and Elijah Mitchell. He just knows how to use his running backs. He knows how to use that 2 running back set. And I feel like the Steelers are kind of slowly starting to fill in there. And get in there with that kind of offensive mindset.
Yeah.
And Jaylen Warren is just the type of running back that just complements Najee Harris so well and is quite needed for the Steelers offense. The guy is just for an undrafted rookie free agent last year, he came in a training camp in preseason and took the number 2 running back job right away. And he was just a helpful hand, a helpful running back. And I feel like in his second year, he's really going to, at least I hope, he takes another big jump. He gets more opportunities on the field as a runner or even as a receiving back if need be, because Jaylen Warren is definitely a guy that I think can take the next step for this team.
Yeah, let me just say, to add on to that real quick, whenever you see number 30, Jaylen Warren, handed the football, he's not going down to first contact. I'll just warn you there.
I love that. I actually picked Jaylen Warren in my fantasy leagues.
Oh,
he was I was big. I wasn't big on Najee, but I was big on him. He's like my 4th or 5th back, but I expect big things from him. So Warren is one of those players that I've definitely had my eye on. I remember Calvin Austin coming out last year. Was it Memphis?
Yes, sir. Memphis.
Okay. So I remember Calvin Austin last year, and yes, his rookie season, was all for naught, but I loved him coming out of college. Definitely a speedster. I think those were some great names. A name that I didn't hear, and I am curious about how he's looked. We're talking about some Steeler bloodlines here, but Joey Porter Jr., I know that he's not starting, right? And probably rightfully so, but he is right behind a legend in Patrick Peterson. Maybe he takes over at some point in this season. If Pat P, is unable to hold it down at his age, which wouldn't be far-fetched, but he gets to learn from a legend like Pat P. How is he looking? He may not impact this game a ton, but just overall, how is he looking in his development? Do you think you have something there, or do you think maybe he was overdrafted?
I think he was underdrafted, actually. I think I don't know how he slept out the first round. He's just he's a sticky physical guy. He truly lives up to the Porter name in that regard. He's just never out of his frame, never out of his place. Is every time I see him, when I watch tape, when I see him on the field, he's just never out his frame. He's always around the football.
Yeah.
How immediate he'll play or when he'll see time, I don't know exactly when he will, but if he were to, it will be in sub-package formations. We'll move Patrick Pearson to the slot. We'll put him outside opposite Levi Wallace if necessary. That's how he'll get his feet wet. I don't know exactly when he will be a consistent starter, but I think that's the perfect way to kind of ease him in. But from what we saw in preseason, which was limited, he only played 2 preseason games, but it was all positive. It was all positive from Joey Porter Jr. and obviously learning from a legend, a football mind, just a rich field of football guys, and not only Peterson but Minka and all those guys, right? I mean, he's got so many veterans to learn from. I mean, he's going to be set up for success.
Yeah, and the guy's just always around Patrick Peterson to pick apart his brain, figure out, how I can do this, do that. He's just always trying to learn. He's always around our coaches at the same time, our secondary coaches. And he's always like, even before and after practice, for like long periods of time, the guy's still working. He's on the jug machine. His work ethic is literally just like his father's. Like, he truly lives up to the Porter name in that degree. And as on the field, that intensity is already there. But if you can live up to that impact and that dominant field, to which we saw small little glimpses of it, but with his long range and his long arms, that's definitely going to play a big part of him.
Yeah, absolutely. That was one thing we absolutely added at the defensive back position was his frame. We lacked that severely. So bringing that's going to be a big must for us. So we call him Peasy Jr. because we called his dad Peasy.
Yeah.
But I'm going to start calling him the sponge because he's just soaking everything up right now.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, there's a lot of young talent in Pittsburgh. I think actually on my second channel, I think I made a video about y'all after the draft. I loved the draft that Pittsburgh put together. I think it was a fantastic draft. I think there's a lot to look forward to. And you gave us a lot of really good names. I saw people in the chat throwing out Quan Alexander. We are very well aware of Quan Alexander. He's a tone setter. He's had some injuries. I don't think he's the player that he was when we brought him over from Tampa necessarily, but he is definitely a key locker room cog. He definitely brings a ton of energy. And I think the 49ers linebackers have benefited from learning under Quan Alexander back in that 2019 season. You see Dre Greenlaw who's a name that you may not know, but you probably do now because he really burst on the scene last year, but a hell of a linebacker next to Fred Warner. He has really taken on the persona of Quan Alexander, and I love Quan Alexander for that. Talanoa Hufanga, who's another name that you saw burst on the scene last year. You guys should be very familiar with him. I mean, if anybody's Palomalu-esque, it would be him. Not quite the athlete Palomalu was. I mean, Palomalu was a 4.3 speed guy, but he is learning under Palomalu. Hell of a player, plays just like him. I think you guys are going to enjoy watching him play football. And one more name, and this guy you probably don't know a lot about, former Oregon Duck. He is our second corner, but Diamador Lenore played really good football last year, and he's improved a lot this offseason. He's finally come into his body, figured some things out, played well last year, and I think he's going to be even better this year. So I'm curious to see how he plays in this game against a very good wide receiving corps over in Pittsburgh. And I think Diamador Lenore might surprise a lot of people this year. He's going to get his hands on a lot of footballs, and I think he's a hell of a player. Late round pick from Oregon, but he is very, very good. Demo, we call him. Diamador Lenore is a guy to look out for.
I like that. I love those names. Yeah, Lenore's going to have a big test for sure, but I think he showcased enough last year. And what was it, 13 starts? So they're really leaning on this guy a lot, and that's going to add confidence to him. And very similar to our defense, he has just a locker room of riches to learn from.
Absolutely,
from every position. I am very familiar with Dre Greenlaw for fantasy reasons.
You want to tell that story?
Yeah, I'll tell that story quick. So it was the Seahawks versus 49ers. I forget what year it was, but it was the last game of the year where
2019.
Yeah, you know where I'm going with this. He stopped Jacob Hollister from scoring a touchdown. I needed Hollister to score a touchdown to win my fantasy matchup.
Oh man. Oh, brutal. Brutal.
So I have a deep personal disliking of Dre Greenlaw, but he is truthfully a great player for sure.
That's a name that you will not forget, I'm sure.
No, and Hufanga, I mean, he's a stud.
Yeah,
I mean, you just knew coming out of USC, this guy was going to be a maniac when given the chance.
Yeah, the man is just a stud. He's fun to watch. He's learning from Troy, of course. He has the hair like him. The physicality and everything. It may not be Troy-esque. I don't think there ever will be another Troy, of course.
Yeah.
But if there's anybody that can at least be a copycat or just as close, it's definitely Hufanga. He definitely burst onto the scene last year, and he's definitely going to continue to upgrade and improve. He's a fun guy to watch for sure.
Yeah, he was a draft crush, and to see him just burst onto the scene like he did last year it's fun to see. So I'm definitely a fan of his.
Even his demeanor is very Troy Polamalu, soft-spoken, well-spoken, soft-spoken. Literally every single practice, he's the first guy on the field. I mean, he embodies everything that Polamalu was. Like I said, maybe not quite the athlete, but as far as his instincts, the way he acts, the way he reacts, very, very similar. And I love to see it. Purdy No Hurdy says, why are you so down on the 49ers, Jesse? I don't know where you're getting that thought. I mean, I have the 49ers going 12-5. I have them going to a Super Bowl. I haven't made my prediction yet for this game, but one thing I do pride myself on, Purdy No Hurdy, is knowing the NFL, not just the 49ers. I really, truly love football. I put a lot of film work into other teams. I do my homework on other teams. It's a reason why I'm excited each week to bring on a content creator, is to try my best to educate the last second sports crew on what other teams are doing, because I think it's very important. I think a lot of times you operate in silos where you're always around your fan base and you think one thing, but maybe that's not reality. And so for me, I don't necessarily think Pittsburgh's going to win this game, but I do think that they're very good, and I'm going to be respectful to another team if I think they warrant it. And I do think the Steelers warrant it. I think this is going to be a good game. But yeah, I think the Niners are a hell of a team. I do think they're going to go to the Super Bowl, and 12-5. I guess maybe if that's down, then that's down, but not down at all on the 49ers. Bass Spokane Niner says most Niner games on the road or at home are at Sea of Red. I don't think we'll be able to represent in Pittsburgh. Fans could be the difference maker. 49er fans travel really well. That is one thing that I'll be curious to see is what that split is. I personally know about 30 people going to the game. Not that that's a representation of thousands, but that's more than usually I hear about going to the game. So I think the 49er fans are actually going to represent very well. But Pittsburgh is a tough place to play. It's a very good stadium, and Pittsburgh Steelers fans represent very well. So I think it'll be a harder stadium to take over the way that the 49er fans normally do. But I think that they're going to represent very well. I really do. I think it'll be a sea of red. Maybe 35%. I think we can go that high. I think we might get 35% of the 49er fan base there. So we'll see.
Yeah, you guys always travel well. Like I said, this is our first home game in 9 years. So yeah, Steelers Nation's gonna have it packed. But if I know the Niners fan base, like I've watched the last couple of years, I mean, yeah, they like to crowd the stadiums themselves. So it's gonna be a very interesting atmosphere, to say the least.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I think I'll probably go 65% Steelers, 35% Niners. But I think if you can get 35% there, I think that's a really good representation. Keenan Gim says, don't forget to like and subscribe, everybody. Yes, to both channels. Definitely check it out. And, this is one thing that I always say to my guys over here is instead of watching big channels like ESPN and Fox and those guys, not that they're not entertaining or you shouldn't, put focus into them, but if you really want to get to know a team in particular, you go to the content creators, because these are the guys that are really putting in the hours. They're covering specifically this team. They love this team. They know everything about this team. They don't have all 32 teams on their mind. They know their team in and out, just like you in the chat know your team in and out. So if you want to know about the Steelers or the Rams or whoever it is, go to other content creators. And what I would say is, when you have a content creator come over here and give their time the way that they have, I always encourage you to go subscribe, even if it means that you want to go troll after the game. If the 49ers win, I'm sure that these guys would love the viewership. They would love the support one way or another. It's all in good fun. And I love doing this show, man. I really, really do. So I'm happy that we were able to get together and do this, but definitely go support these two for sure.
And to our core, to our crew, to do the same with Jesse here for the Last Second Sports. I mean, his channel is in the title with the @ so it's easy to just click sub. That's all you gotta do. It takes 2 clicks. So like he said, man, same thing applies there. So absolutely, man.
Yeah.
Yep. Steel Twins. Go check them out. Definitely. I love it. So, all right, we're pressing up on the hour. We had some other topics. I don't think we necessarily need to get there, but what we do need to get to is who the hell wins this game. Week 1 is very, very interesting. I think if teams are caught off guard, it can definitely happen week 1. I think the 49er fans, we know this all too well. Chicago was absolutely a team that they should have beaten in week 1. They didn't win that game. Even in week 3, Denver, Atlanta, some of the games the 49ers should have won handily. They were unable to get done last year. And some of the games that maybe they shouldn't have won, they did go and win. So week 1 is interesting no matter what. Like I said, Pittsburgh always is ready to start the season. Tomlin is going to have his guys ready. I think Pittsburgh, if you're looking at them over the last couple years versus now, Ben Roethlisberger was a shell of himself 2 years ago. That was not the same Ben Roethlisberger that we watched play football for many, many years. That team was never going to do anything great. They were in a rebuild mode. Last year was kind of their down year. This year, I think they're on the upswing. We'll see what their final record ends up being, but I do expect it to be competitive. I do expect that they represent very well in this game. They have a ton of talent. I will go first on this one. Bosa being back, Kittle should play as well. Those were 2 question marks going into this game. I am going to pick the San Francisco 49ers. I do think it's tight. I'm going 23-20 San Francisco. Who are you fellas picking in this one?
Rob, you can go first.
Well, see, when we made our predictions, I think it was before the draft, something like that, or was it after the draft? Whenever they released the schedule, we made our predictions. I predicted that we would lose week 1. But that was always, of course, before training camp and hearing what was happening and seeing what happened in preseason, how this team is just gelling well together and everything. I go back and forth because I know how good of a team you guys are. But at the same time, it's like every year when it comes to the 49ers, it's always a slow start for some reason for Kyle Shanahan and company. Like, I don't know what it is. It just happens to be a slow start. Like when you guys lost to Chicago last year, I found out to be a big question mark. I'm like, how did they lose to Chicago? And I believe that game was in Chicago, but nonetheless, I mean, you guys are like night and day when it comes to Chicago last year and how far you guys went. But with how much the Steelers have improved and added through free agency and the draft, and just how what we're hearing from reports of training camp and how they've been gelling throughout preseason. Obviously, that all needs to translate to the regular season and see how this team truly can come about. But knowing that it's going to be the first home opener for week 1 for the Steelers since 2014, the atmosphere is going to be crazy with Steelers Nation. The crowd could definitely absolutely be a difference maker, when it comes to enemy territory for you guys coming to Pittsburgh. That definitely plays a huge part. I mean, Kansas City, for example, whenever opposing teams go to play Kansas City in Kansas City, I mean, the crowd is just a roar. It's a ruckus. It really distracts opposing teams. It definitely plays a big factor. I can see something similar with San Fran here, with it being the week 1 home opener for the Steelers. I'm going to have to go Pittsburgh, but I can see this one being down to the wire, probably a last-second field goal from either kicker. But I'm going to go with the Steelers right here. I'm going to say 27-24 Pittsburgh.
Let me ask you this before you go. I want to know, what is the confidence in your kicker if such a situation should arise? Because that is one thing that I think has been a topic of conversation here on the 49ers side of things. Is Robbie Gould was one of the most reliable kickers ever. I mean, he never missed a field goal in the playoffs. He's no longer on this team. They took a hell of a rookie in Moody, probably overdrafted him, taking him in round 3, but he's got a fantastic leg on him, but he's been shaky in the preseason. Then he got hurt, missed the final preseason game. And so we're all kind of hoping that it's fine, but we don't know for sure. And so this game is going to be very important, I think, for his mentals going forward and proving himself that he can be the kicker for this team. So what does it look like on Pittsburgh? If a game-winning field goal comes up in this situation, are you confident in your kicker?
As we always say, and Boz we trust.
Yes.
Okay.
So I actually didn't even know that your kicker had a situation like that. So that's definitely important to note. Now, I know it's going to be I don't know exactly what the weather is going to be, but it's not traditional Heinz Field weather. It's not football weather exactly. But Heinz Field is always one of the toughest places to kick a field goal, especially a game winner if it comes down to it, which I think we're anticipating something like that. This is going to be one of those games where you're going to get a little bit of both. You're going to see the gritty. You're going to see the defenses as advertised, right? But I think with both these offenses, they have enough star power, they have enough push, they have enough youth that they're just going to make a couple plays here and there. We're going to see some touchdowns. We're going to get a very half and half sort of game is how I'm going into this. That's my expectation. We're going to get exactly what you would expect from our defenses, and then you're going to get what you hope to see from the offenses. It's going to be one of those games. In that said, I have to agree with either of your guys' score prediction. It's funny because I actually thought about both exactly of your guys' score prediction. So in victory, though, I'm going to say, because see, with the Steelers, man, we could be getting the Steelers we've gotten the last 2 years where we upset the Bills and the Bengals.
Yeah.
Or we could get a Steelers team where it's against a true elite team, a high caliber team, a team that is literally on the verge of winning a Super Bowl. You guys have 5, right?
Yeah, we have 5.
Yeah, so you guys are on the verge of potentially tying us for 6 again. So in that factor, could it be the Steelers underestimating or not being ready or not being prepared? When I think of that, I view the Patriots game years ago in 2018, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that was when they were defending champs after they tied us for 6. So it could, I don't know exactly what Steelers team we're going to get. Obviously, I hope for what a lot of analysts, a lot of experts, a lot of media is actually hyping as the sleeper team, or don't forget about the Steelers, or the Steelers are back. And everything that they're saying, they're actually giving us credit, which kind of concerns me. Because every time they do, But if we get the Steelers team that we're definitely anticipating, I know they can pull off the upset. But in some way, I'm just on the fence a little bit because I still haven't earned certain trust from some guys in the coaching staff.
I get that.
I love this roster. I love the depth we brought in. This team is definitely better compared to last year, just from depth, experience, the veterans we brought in. It's substantially great. I'm gonna go Niners. I've been Homer all stream, all episode, but I'm gonna go Niners here. But this could be an overtime game. This could come down to the wire. It could be a as time expires sort of deal. I'm gonna go 49ers. And I'm gonna agree with your score prediction, 23-20.
Okay, I can respect that. I mean, this is a game that could definitely go down to the wire. We said it several times. We'll say it again. Both these teams are physical, aggressive, hungry, playoff bound, arguably Super Bowl bound. Definitely you guys, us. We still got to prove ourselves for that stake. But
yeah,
Week 1, Heinz Field in Pittsburgh. I mean, this is a matchup that is going to be a true test for both teams, arguably. See exactly, how advertised are they going to be? Now, Week 1 isn't always going to be the type of game that sets the tone for a season, nor should it.
But
despite the outcome.
But at the same time, I feel like this is a game where it could really, the Steelers could really tell that, hey, we are for real again. We are for real this time around. So this is definitely going to be one of the more microscope games when it comes to the Steelers. I know it's a long season. We got many months ahead, many games ahead. But truthfully, man, I expect a great Steelers performance, a great Steelers team. But I think this could potentially be one of those where they may not be there yet, and then that's when they just continue to progress through the season. I hope I'm wrong, obviously. I want a dub in Heinz Field, but I got to be a little realistic here. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong.
But I can understand your thought process and your standpoint on that. I can't entirely disagree.
Yeah.
But you never know with this team. You never know with the Steelers. You never really know. When it comes to us Steelers fans, it's always a heart attack at the end of the day come game day. So you never really know.
That's the thing, man. We have certain expectations. We see the team. We see the growth. But at the end of the day, it's Steelers football. It's never pretty, typically ugly, and we got to have 911 on speed dial. So I'm excited for it.
First of all, I respect it because I've done this no team's going undefeated. And I really try to keep it real when I think the 49ers are going to lose. And there are times that I pick against the 49ers when we do these shows and people are like, how can you do that? It's like, listen, they're going to lose a game at some point, or they're going to lose games. I'm just being real in this situation. I don't think the 49ers are going to win, or I do think they're going to win. And it's not easy to do that when you got a whole stream of your fan base there. But if that's how you feel, I respect it. It takes a lot of balls to go that direction and not be a homer. So I respect it. I think it's going to be close either way. George here says you will get a very physical Steelers team on Sunday. I wouldn't expect anything less. And you're talking about two teams that are predicated around defense, running the ball historically, and very, very physical teams that now, and the 49ers have had it for a while, but the Steelers are starting to catch up from a talent aspect. I think this could be a real fight in Week 1. One of those games where, well, the 49ers aren't going to lose next week because they're playing the Rams and they own the Rams. But normally I would say that both teams might come out of this worse for wear and lose the week after, because it is one of those physical games that takes a little bit more out of you than normal. And especially in Week 1, a lot of bodies aren't hardened for a lot of hits and that physicality. So this is going to be a very good game. I expect it to be a physical game. I think it's going to be a great time. I want to say once again, thank you both for coming on. Let me get through these final super chats and then we'll send it off here. Pissed Off Brother Bob says, been to Twinsburg. Anyway, Pittsburgh getting smoked hard. All right. Fair enough. Yeah. All right. That's it. Listen, Rob, Dan, the Steel Twins, I know they're approaching 12,000 subs over there. Go show them some love. Like I said, if nothing else, just to talk a little trash after Week 1, if the 49ers win, I'm sure that they will take it in the chat. They would enjoy the subscription and showing them love. So please go do that for them. If you're a Steeler fan and you want to do the same here, that would be great. But definitely, these guys just gave us over an hour of their time. They're in the middle of a move. I know you can't see that, but this show was dicey because they're in the middle of moving and they didn't know if they could get it set up on time. I'm glad that they were able to make it work. Probably went out of their way to make it actually work. And I thank you guys for that. Rob, Dan, thank you again for coming on. Have a hell of a season. Appreciate y'all. Everybody in the chat,